Hello, we are live. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining the live stream, whether you're watching live while it's happening or later on. It's good to have you here. Good to see some regulars in the chat. Yes, smash the like button. Thank you. Yes. There's kind of surprising right now how many new products and new things are coming out. And we also have Prime Day coming up next Monday and Tuesday. And just a heads up, Prime Day, I think, is going to be another good Prime Day with some great deals, especially too. There's great deals for us folks who live in the U.S., but I've also been seeing a bunch of deals that are for outside the U.S. as well. So stay tuned. I think Prime Day is gradually maybe becoming more of a global event, but Monday and Tuesday next week, keep an eye out for updates there. Nice to see you, John. Good afternoon from Wet Texas, not West Texas, Wet Texas. Sam, when am I going to be able to do super chats? Oh, thanks, Sam. I turned them off. I just, it's not really my thing. But I appreciate the sentiment and desire. But there'll be other ways to support me and my channel over time. But super chats right now, just not really something I'm too much into. Zane, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. So we've had, I was mentioning quite a week of product announcements, and it just seems like a lot going on for July, which you would otherwise think is maybe a slow news month, but certainly not. We got the new Aqara U200. I have one here. I have not set mine up yet to play with it. I think it's an interesting lock because if you're able to replace your deadbolt, maybe you want something that's sort of all in one and just takes up that whole deadbolt slot and doesn't have anything else around it. But it can also be convenient to not have to rekey your, to not have to rekey the deadbolt you're replacing, with the existing key. If you have keys that match on your different deadbolts, you can get, a lot of smart locks. You can just take the deadbolt and get it rekeyed so it matches your existing keys. But of course, with a retrofit lock like the U200, you don't have to worry about that. So that can be a benefit. I know logistically for my family, as like I change smart locks like underwear sometimes, given this channel, that it can be tricky of like, wait, what key do you have to get into our home? And of course, people can use the PIN codes or various other ways I can register people's fingerprint depending on the lock. But it's always a little bit of a moving target if you're coming over to my house, which is kind of funny. But so the U200 is it's the here. Let's see if I can switch up my scene here. Here we go. My Stream Deck was not doing what I wanted it to. But yeah, so here's the U200. Got the fingerprint scanner. It's Matter. It's home key. It works over Matter over Thread, which the U50 did not or does not. I've also been playing with Aqara's U100 with the fingerprint reader as well. I'll be talking a little bit about that on next week with something. But yeah, so here's the example of retrofitting. And of course, as Shane mentioned in his video, this is compatible with lock types in Europe as well, where it can actually go over a key and turn the key to actually turn the lock, which is a pretty cool design. I also thought this whole thing with the bag, when I first, looked at opened the box and saw this bag. Here it is. I was a little confused, like, what is this? But there's this charging bag they have, so you can sort of hang the battery off of it as you charge it. So they've thought of little details like that. Of course, it's a reusable battery that charges with USB-C. There are trade-offs to both, right? There's some locks are AA or other kinds of disposable batteries. Of course, you could use rechargeable ones. This one has rechargeable USB-C, but probably expect a proper review from me on this channel on this lock coming up at some point, but I'm a little bit behind on getting started with this one. Oh, nice. Waiting to install my U200 next week. Hopefully you don't need the M3 hub. Yeah, it's I mean the M3 hub can help with some of the fingerprint stuff and some of the like Aqara specific connections, but yeah, I mean you should be able to add it straight into HomeKit or another platform if you want to. So that's that. Then another thing that came out this week that I'm also going to start looking at are the GE under cabinet lighting fixtures. I saw these at CES and they looked really nice at CES. Basically, they're under cabinet lighting that plugs into your outlets, but you can also, connect them to your power other ways. If you want to do some, wiring that is more concealed, you can do that. And they are really good compared to just like your standard tape light LED strips. They're really good at diffusing the light. So it's just well balanced. Nice to see you, William. Good afternoon. But they also have quite a range of colors. So GE Sync hasn't had the best reliability in some of their past products, but I like to think they're turning a corner with some of their Matter stuff and some of their recent other products and making more reliable stuff. We'll just have to see how these stack up with testing. But one of the things that GE always talked about at CES, which is something to think about whether you're interested in these lights or not, is how much they are a GE Sync or GE Lighting, which is a savant company. I don't really understand at this point the total corporate structure of GE and all the different brands, but they come from the background of making lights. Of course, you can go to any hardware store and probably find a GE light bulb that has nothing smart about it. It's just a light bulb. And they were showing some demos at CES of how good their lights are at dimming and other things, and how they've then applied that to their smart lights as well. So, there are companies like that, like GE. Of course, Lutron is another one that have these backgrounds in traditional lighting, as opposed to tech companies that come with the knowledge of the tech and the software, but maybe aren't always as knowledgeable or don't have the years of background of experience in making actual lights. So we'll see. They sent me here we can go back to the main view. They have these like puck style under the cabinet lights. And then there are these bars in different sizes, which then, of course, can do different colors, as I was mentioning, and then diffuse the light as well. So we'll see how those stack up. But and that's just scratching the surface of like all the random different announcements coming out in July. It's much more than I would have anticipated in advance of. Like, I don't know, just thinking like a month or two ago, I wouldn't have thought this would be all coming at the same time, but it's exciting. It's fun. Then let's see. Another thing that I wanted to call out, speaking of new products you might be interested in, and it's not quite as smart home related, but it's very much Apple related, which is the Insta360 Flow Pro. Now, I have other solutions for my own my own video stuff, like the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 that I've talked about before. But DockKit is a cool concept. There was a Belkin had a demo and a shipping product around DockKit from CES, where basically it's an Apple API with iPhone where you tap your phone to the DockKit dock, and then it pairs and then can communicate with this special API that Apple's built to the stand for the phone of where to turn based on the image recognition that the phone picks up. So what that means is you can tap your phone to this, it pairs, and then it will track you as you move around the room. And that works with any camera app on your iPhone, basically, anyone that uses Apple's standard APIs. And so that also includes things like FaceTime and also includes things like continuity camera. So you could actually like use something like this paired to, an iPhone that's using continuity camera with an Apple TV to FaceTime, and then have, a big group of people on the couch FaceTiming. The problem with DockKit, though, in my test with that is I was really excited about that concept at CES, but then realized after CES, no one's probably going to use that. And at the same time, the DockKit is really limited to, I think it's like 2 or 3 faces, but not much more. So if you have like the whole family or whatever group of people on the couch, right, like 4 or 5 people, it's not really going to be smart enough to keep any individual person in frame. Maybe if you have worked in sort of a corporate job before, maybe you've seen that there's a handful of these solutions for big companies where they'll have some fancy conference room set up with a camera that will listen to microphones and then try to zoom in to the person who's talking in a conference room so that people who are remote can see a big version of the person who's talking. Because that can often be, if you work remote, and people are in a conference room, it could be hard because everybody who's in the conference room is like this little tiny person and you're hearing like a faint version of their voice. And these kind of solutions are to varying degrees help with that. And I thought, this would be like the family version of that. But it's much more for filming yourself and, they do advertise it for things like, of course, Google Meet and FaceTime and stuff here on the webpage. It's much more, I think, oriented towards things like filming yourself. But it's a cool gadget, especially if you film a lot of stuff on your iPhone. So, yeah, I just want to mention it because it is kind of a cool integration with Apple's special APIs around DockKit that could be worth checking out as well. Just came out this week. Now, I should mention as well, Insta360s had gotten in some they had an interesting little kerfuffle on YouTube recently where different creators were calling them out for asking creators to say that not say content was sponsored when it was actually sponsored. And I think there was a lot of maybe both sides not fully understanding the other. I don't know. I don't really, I wasn't directly involved with any of that, but I just wanted to mention that because FYI. But I mean, I still think Insta360 makes some cool products regardless of whatever actually happened there or not. I used their Insta360 Go 3 for like point of view shots. I can clip this to a hat or something and then show like my point of view when I'm doing some kind of installation or something. Can be kind of a fun camera for that. But yeah, so that's the Flow Pro, which now is the successor to the Flow, I guess you could say, but also then with DockKit. So then let's go back to the chat and then answer some questions, catch up, and then I have other stuff to talk about. Good questions here. Oh, yes. So Frederick has, and the speaker stands. These are the, here, let me pull them up. I got them last year. There's actually, John Imperial is a influencer on Instagram as well as YouTube. Great sort of tech lifestyle content. He has some amazing desk setups and like gadget reviews and stuff. He actually, his desk setup was what turned me on to these speakers because I just saw him on his desk and I'm like, these look so cool. And he had them, of course, linked in his content. These are the Kanto U4 speakers. So These are they also there's also the U2s, which are YU number two, which are similar but just a little smaller and have some less bass. There's also a subwoofer you can get with these if you want more bass. I did not opt for the subwoofer. Just I didn't want to spend the extra money really. Then they also have speaker stands. The stands I have are from Kento as well. There's these small ones, the S4 stand, and then there's I don't know why they don't have mine here, but I got my stands from here's my stands. Come on. Here we go. So these are basically, I think, what I have. The SP6 HD. There, the air conditioning shut off, so now you have much less background noise. I don't know how much that comes through on the stream. But yeah, that's my speakers, and they sound great. I like them it's nice to be able to have a way to monitor audio for my videos without having to put headphones on. So like as I'm editing, it's just one less point of friction, and they just sound great for listening to music and stuff during the day. Because I like to experiment with all the things smart home, I of course also have Sonos Era 100s, not Era 100s, Sonos Play 1s mounted up there, some old Play 1s. And I already had the wall mounts and the speakers from somewhere else. Didn't need them there anymore and put them in the office just because it's one more thing I can play with and automate. And there's actually a cool app if you're into Sonos and you're into Apple shortcuts. I can never remember the name of the app. Soro, Soro. I'll pull it up. It's actually a really good app if you're into automating Sonos. And I want to get to more of your, of course, it just opened. I was trying to pull this up to show you guys, but just like opened the App Store on my Mac, and I wanted to show it to you in Safari. There we go. So yeah, this is Soro. And speaking of Sonos, I want to get to one other thing with Sonos, and then I want to get back to your questions. But yeah, Soro is a cool app because it basically allows you to create shortcuts that then can be specific Sonos playlists, rooms, zones, whatever. And so you can, because you can tie Sonos speakers that use AirPlay into Apple Home via AirPlay, but sometimes you might want to do it via the Sonos system, and this allows you to do that. And of course, also works with Sonos speakers that don't support AirPlay too. So yeah, cool little app to check out if you're into Sonos. Let's see. So the other thing related to Sonos, by the way, speaking of home theater stuff, before we get back to more Apple related things, Chris Welch had some leaks this week on the Lasso codename speaker from Sonos coming to replace the Arc. I've been saying for all of 2024, I wouldn't buy an Arc. I have not bought an Arc because, I mean, Sonos had some really good deals on the Arc, especially around like the Super Bowl timeframe. But they're probably coming out with a new one, and here's some more rumors about that. Hopefully coming later this year, so we'll see. I don't know if Lasso is actually going to be. I think it's just the code name of the soundbar. But it's supposed to, according to Chris, look very similar to the Arc, but have very different internals. And that would fit with what Sonos did with the Beam Gen 1 and the Beam Gen 2. If you haven't heard a Beam Gen 2 and you've used a Beam Gen 1, the Beam Gen 2 is a radically better speaker. I don't know if it's necessarily worth the upgrade if you already have a Beam Gen 1, but Sonos did really take a big leap forward, even though it looks very similar on the outside. So who knows? I could see this being the same kind of thing. Bluetooth audio playback, which I don't really care about with a sound bar like this. But a lot of sound bars do have Bluetooth for, parties and other stuff where you might want to like have someone else's phone and play music. And I do find that handy on some of the other Sonos speakers. So kind of fits with more of becoming a standard feature across their line. But let's go back to the chat and get to some of your questions. Issues with the Maris garage door opener. Well, where do I start with this? Hold on. My first thought with any kind of garage issue would generally be to go with and thank you Ryan D for the question. I don't think this is off topic. I mean, I guess it is, but totally something I'd love to talk about. First thing I go to for garage issues would just be the Wi-Fi signal out there. It could be not strong enough, and that could be causing the real issue, because I've heard of plenty of other people who had no problems with the Maris garage door opener. That said, personally, I have not actually used the Maris garage door opener. I just did a video on the Tailwind one, which I'm using right now. I've used a handful of Maris products. I've had mixed results. I don't want to categorically say, oh, all Maris products are great or terrible, or I just don't think I have enough data to make like a conclusion like that. And I don't think it's really fair to any company to say, oh, their products are terrible or great. I mean, or I could say their products are great if they're companies I say that about, but yeah, I just don't think it's fair to throw Maris under the bus. But yeah, because I know a lot of people like their stuff. I haven't had the occasion to use a lot of their products, and therefore haven't collected a lot of data. The ones I've tried happen to not have been as great of an experience for me. So, yeah, but I know a lot of people love that Maris garage door opener. So I would look into the Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi signal. If the Wi-Fi signal is good enough, then I would look at something like the maybe just buying it's more money, but like it could be just bad hardware somewhere in the chain. So first try software resetting if you haven't tried that already. And if it continues, you might try, let's say, buying a new unit from Maris and then replacing the controller unit of yours and just keeping your existing wiring and maybe the sensors and stuff, but like change out the main controller unit and maybe like a new one of those doesn't have any issues. I think that's, one of the things I mentioned in my how to make your smart home more reliable video a while back was just that like a lot of these smart home gadgets, they have all these little circuits and stuff, and they roll off the assembly line for as affordable of a price as companies can make them for. And that's important for, it's like essential for smart home tech, right? Like we can't be paying $250 for a smart plug that no one would buy that. And same as a garage door controller. But that also means I think that there's a lot of times where the hardware after like a year of use or 2 years of use, maybe it just like up and fails. And maybe that's not true across the whole product line, right? But it might be like 3% of the units just happen to fail after 2 years. And it's the kind of flaw that maybe couldn't really have been caught in any way during the manufacturing. I don't know. I'm generalizing a little bit. I'm not a hardware engineer. I'm not an expert there, but it's just something that I've found is that sometimes there are products that I've tried to reset them 100 times, and it just, that's not doing it. And it might just be that you got a lemon or a product that was working great, but then for one reason or another, it just started to fail, and it's kind of time to either live without it or replace some or all of it. So some thoughts there. So let's see. good to see a bunch of you. Hey, Larry, another regular here. Nice to see you. Okay. So many questions. Yes, the spatial audio support of the Beam Gen 2 has been fantastic. Yeah, and that also relates to it supports Dolby Atmos, which is another cool feature there. So, yeah, I mean, and they increased the price on it, I think, since they launched the Beam Gen 2, but it's still like half the price, or maybe like 60% of the price of an ARC. So you're getting newer hardware from Sonos right now by getting that soundbar, and it's less expensive, which is could be an attractive option, especially if you don't feel like you need the ARC. I did try and ended up returning an ARC a while back. It is like another level of sound compared to the Beam Gen 2, and I'm interested to check out the new version of that level of speaker from Sonos when it does come out. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with a Beam Gen 2 especially for a smaller room or something. It's amazing speaker. Any future plans for Home Assistant? I have a video on Home Assistant Green that I recorded this week. So that's in the editing phase. I don't know when it will come out because I have a lot of product review videos also in progress, but it's coming. So I have some thoughts on Home Assistant and Home Assistant Green. I don't know if I'm going to be the channel that tells you like the 15 amazing hacks you can do with Home Assistant to make your setup way better, or like, look at this amazing custom dashboard I built with Home Assistant. I think all that's super cool. Go for it, do it, have fun. I just don't know if like this channel is going to be the place where you'll find that. But I do have some thoughts as far as like Home Assistant and how someone could use it with Apple Home. Automation gone wrong. My air purifier turned on just now. Needed to turn it off because I don't want that sound during this. What would you like to see in the rumored Apple iPad and HomePod smart home mashup? Yes. How could we skip over? How could I like leave out from the agenda? I can't believe I forgot about this. There were some more rumors this week from Mac Rumors. They discovered some code in iOS, the iPad OS, no, tvOS beta, referencing this new home accessory, which is going to be probably running the version of processor that will come with the iPhones in the fall. I'm very excited about this. A smart HomePod with a display is probably the most anticipated product for me ever. Like, I've talked about this concept so much in so many different ways on the channel, and having used Amazon Echo shows and Google Home or Google Home Hubs, Nest Hub, whatever the name is of the latest iteration of name they have for those, those really take those smart home platforms to the next level in terms of just the ease of use of the functionality that's right there on the display, the ability to show photos, the ability to tie into other things you might have with that company, right? Seeing status on stuff, seeing just timers visually. So even if it's just a simple display on top of a HomePod, or if it's something much more elaborate, like Mark Gurman's been reporting about this sort of tablet that can swivel around on a base, I'm very excited about that. And I think it really will take Apple Home to another level of usefulness because, it's handy to have these voice assistants like a HomePod Mini or a full-size HomePod where you can talk to it and have it do stuff in your home. But as I've said before, and we'll say again, I really see that as like sort of a way to fill in the gaps of something that's like, oh, I need to do this thing with my smart home, and I don't have another automation or button or control or something else set up for it. It's just like all of a sudden something came up and you need to do something. Then you could talk to your HomePod and maybe it'll get it done, hopefully. But it's not going to be fast. And I think that people who get into the smart home tech thing and think, oh, I'm just going to always shout to these voice assistant speakers and do everything in my home that way. I mean, it doesn't take too many tries with a stopwatch to realize that hitting a light switch on the wall is much faster than asking a voice assistant to turn on the lights. And yes, there are edge cases where you have your hands full or your hands are dirty with, cooking or whatever, and you need to do that. But I think just having a display with physical controls, or not physical controls, like touchscreen controls and other functionality, whatever Apple's going to put there. And that's the thing I think where Apple, you can see some of this too with some of their new screensaver stuff they've done with Apple TV for tvOS 18. And so I'm very, very excited about what Apple could do with a smart display. And I hope they don't stop at like one generation of it, right? Like they make the one version of it. Maybe there's continual new things. It might be that the first one they do is very simple. But yeah, cannot be more excited about that. So, yeah. Oh yes, the last the amp was called Hideout. Yeah, that's a good point, Rob. I didn't know that about the amp, but Lasso. I guess someone's a Ted Lasso fan there at Sonos, I'm guessing. Yeah, that's something to keep in mind. I mentioned this. You might hear me say this in an upcoming video on Prime Day, but keep an eye out for deals on Sonos. It's just one of those perennial like summer deal things to keep an eye out for, because if you're into Sonos or you're thinking of getting into Sonos, summer is often a time where you can see some of their not completely bleeding edge speakers, but still very good speakers on sale. And Sonos came out with a lot of great speakers last year in 2023. And a lot of those speakers, I wouldn't be surprised if you find some good deals on them this summer. And they're still great. And, Sonos isn't going to make them make new versions of some of those probably for years to come. So you're still buying into a relatively new product. New subscriber here. Thanks. Welcome, Ryan. Any suggestions for robot vacuums that will be able to work with iOS and HomeKit? Well, that's another thing to probably keep an eye out for with summer sales and deals. And we got Prime Day around the corner. So, I can't say anything about specific deals about vacuums. But really there are two vacuums that support Matter, three vacuums that support Matter right now. There's the EcoVax X2 Omni is one. Basically, what you want is a vacuum that supports Matter, because Apple has said we're going to add support for Matter vacuums, right? And then various vacuum manufacturers have added support for Matter to their vacuums. Now, both of those have not been proven to work together yet, right? So you're sort of, Apple hasn't shipped their vacuum integration. I haven't seen it in the betas. I don't think it's even in the betas right now. So it's a little bit of like counting on pieces coming together technically that should work theoretically. But just keep that in mind. This is very much the first gen, but if you want to be on the bleeding edge, I think the X2 Omni from EcoVax could be a good option to look at for a vacuum that supports Matter. Roborock also has a vacuum that supports Matter, and I'm trying to remember which one it is. It's basically their flagship It's an S8 Max V Ultra is the one that supports Matter from Roborock. And in a lot of ways, I'd say, I used to say that like Roborock had cleaner design than EcoVax, but I think in a certain way, it's almost becoming like Coke and Pepsi. Like the two companies are just so very competitive with each other and catching up with features. I mean, EcoVax has really improved their app a lot recently. And I mentioned that in my review of the T30S a little bit ago. But so I would say either one is great. The Roborock S8 Max V Ultra. Now, I should also clarify, I have not used either of these specific vacuums yet. I do plan on looking at least one of them. It's a matter of a handful of logistics and trying out vacuums. Kind of take a little bit more time to check out and review for me. But anyways, I would look at either the Roborock S8 Max V Ultra or the Ecovacs X2 Omni. And I've been really pleased with Ecovacs. I have been playing with their T30S, which is a very similar vacuum to the X2 Omni. Just sort of, it's the same generation basically, but just a different line of their products. But this is the X2 Omni from Ecovacs. The other cool thing that Ecovacs has with their X2 line is this, and the T30S line, is this combo concept. And I've been loving it with the T30S, where you can get the combo with a handheld vacuum. I think you guys can see. Yeah, you can see this. Good. I couldn't remember if I'd set the scene right in Ecamm. So you have this like handheld vacuum that's always ready to go right next to the robot vacuum. So it does make the base station a little bit larger. I mentioned about some of the positives and negatives of this setup in my review of the T30S on my channel, which is, as I said, a very similar vacuum. But I do find overall it's a very convenient thing to have this like out there in your living space or wherever you put your station. You always also have this vacuum that like has its place to go with all of its attachments. It's always charged. It always empties. As you put it back in the thing, it empties into the robot vacuum's base station. So yeah, can be a nice setup. So something to keep in mind there. Let's go back to some questions. And I also would say, like, it's great to want to be on the bleeding edge, and I would imagine that getting one of these vacuums will work with Apple Home. But that said, I mean, a robot vacuum, you're talking about close to $1,000, if not over $1,000 for one of these. So it's a lot of money, potentially. And we're not 100% sure at this point how it will work with Apple Home. So I think that I could also see the argument of why not wait and see how it works out for all the silly people like myself who try all these things out and let you know how it actually works when it actually ships. But, if you need a robot vacuum today, or not need, but really want a robot vacuum today and want to get something that's very likely to support those things in the future, then I think one of those options could work well. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Railink or Unify. So I recently reviewed the Railink Argus 4 Pro. Of course, Railink has their own PoE line. And I've been, if you've watched the channel at all for a while, you probably have seen some of my thoughts or heard some of my thoughts. A recurring topic here on the live streams about Unify and Ubiquiti and their Unify Protect camera system, as well as their networking system. I mean, that's how I'm talking to you over my network is Ubiquiti Unify. I think if I were to boil it down to, I like Ubiquiti's integration with networking and the Protect system. So if you're thinking of doing networking from Ubiquiti, then it's natural to, I think, go towards Protect. But it is a little bit more expensive than Railink. I am extremely impressed with Railink's Color X night vision and what they're doing there. And I haven't seen anything from Ubiquiti that would be at the same level, especially for anything remotely in the same ballpark of cost. And maybe some of their like G5 AI bullet, like I can't remember the model names of that, but like the super high-end cameras from Ubiquiti probably could match some of that quality. But I think it's like basically computational photography that Railink is doing with this video processing to get Color X night vision. I might be checking out some of their PoE line. I have not tried Railink's PoE line myself, talking to them. So maybe I will soon. Again, as I mentioned, I have a lot of different products to review right now, so I don't know when that would actually fit in terms of video timelines. But yeah, I would say Railink can tend to be a better, like more specs and features for your money, and they are ahead at least right now with this Color X Night Vision, in my opinion. Um, but Unify can be like just really nice integrations, good software. I love, their web dashboard where you just log in, you get all your network stuff, and then you get all your camera stuff. And it's all right there. So, and like when my son wants to see the trash truck coming on Tuesdays, we can pull it up on the app on the Apple TV. But I think both companies have apps for like Apple TV and other things. And you can, of course, run them through scripted or things to get them into Apple Home. So, yeah, I would say, yeah, integration and maybe is more Unify's Pro as well as Railink. I think your dollars would go further, but I don't feel like Railink, at least in my experience with their Argus Pro 4, has the same level of software quality that Ubiquiti does. But that said, it's not that uncommon that Ubiquiti ships something where it's like, oh, whoops, that kind of broke a little bit because of something, and then they'll fix it. But generally, Ubiquiti's apps and UI and stuff just, I think, is like a little bit of a level above Railink in terms of the software that you'd use on a regular basis. So that's another side of it to consider. What is that black device above my desk? That is a Sonos. I have two like a stereo pair of Sonos Play Ones. I think that's the term for them. What's the speaker? No, it's not a Play One. That's the old name for it. It's a 1SL. Those are Sonos, stereo pair of Sonos 1SLs. So, nice to see you, Harold. Thanks for joining. Any recommendations on a presence sensor other than Aqara? Hey, Carissa. I haven't tried any like millimeter wave sensors other than Aqara's for specifically like that millimeter wave presence. For motion sensors, passive infrared motion sensors, there's a lot of different options that I've played with. I would say potentially looking at I would look at the Eve motion sensor, Eve Motion, that supports Matter, as well as Philips Hue has a motion sensor that supports Matter. If you have Philips Hue lights, or if you have Lutron lights, the Lutron motion sensor for the Lutron lights and the Philips Hue motion sensor for the Philips Hue lights both have special software integrations that you don't get through Apple Home in terms of like amount of time the lights are left on. Like if there's no motion for 10 minutes, it's really easy to set up those kind of automations there where it's not easy in Apple Home. So those are some things to consider. But yeah, I mean, if someone knows of another presence sensor that works with Apple Home that's like a millimeter wave presence sensor to actually detect physical human presence, let us know. Let Carissa know in the chat. Love to hear, because there's a lot of really smart home people here who know more than I do in especially in certain areas. I'm running Railink. Speaking of that, running Railink cameras and the POA doorbell of getting it integrated with HomeKit Secure Video. Still getting issues with scripted, but not giving up yet. Yeah. I don't necessarily consider scripted worth the trouble, but I'm kind of alone on that. Like I know plenty of people love scripted and using it. A Sonos presence sensor. I didn't know Sonos made a presence sensor. Maybe there's a typo there. Oh, Sonoff. I guess Sonoff is maybe the brand here. Yeah, So I think this is what we're talking about. Presence sensor. But does it work with, it doesn't show Apple Home here. Yeah, because that's the thing about, I mean, this simple chart shows it, but it's like the difference is a motion sensor just detects motion, right, with a passive infrared signal. A millimeter wave sensor can actually detect people, and like, you know, presence of people. Hey, Jaden. Oh yes, and the recently bought the CX810, which, yeah, that's I was looking at that camera, the Color X PoE1 Power over Ethernet, from Railink. Haven't had time to add it to Apple Home. Makes sense, Garance, but nice to see you here, and thanks for sharing. Oh yeah, that is a really good point. Restricting camera notifications to when no one is home, aka, you know, you're on vacation or everybody's out. Like that's really nice. That's a good point. Sometimes I've had trouble across all cameras. This is not specific to any camera manufacturer, but it's like camera notifications, depending on where the camera is and other details, can get overwhelming. Like it can be one of those difficult types of notifications to tame, because there are certain times where getting that notification is extremely important and you want to know when someone or something is there at that camera. But at the same time, then you could also get a ton of notifications or a ton of clips recorded or whatever. So, and yeah, the Home app uses Apple's location tracking in a way that is tricky for third-party apps to do. So that's a good point. All right. So it's been about 45 minutes here, and I have other things I need to get to today. Unfortunately, there will be no live stream next Friday. I know we took a couple weeks off, and then there's this live stream. It's just the summer. I have a conflict next Friday, but I'll stay tuned for the next live stream. I'll announce that, and definitely have lots of videos coming for you in the meantime. So stay tuned to the channel. I just put out a video a couple hours ago, actually, on home key locks and whether you should get a home key lock in 2024, which isn't really something we talked about today, but there's some things to consider there, whether it's worth it or not for you. Thanks again so much for joining the live stream, and hope to see you in your next video. Bye.